Before we begin, if you have not finished the main story of Mass Effect Andromeda, then stop watching now. There will be major plot spoilers ahead. With Mass Effect Andromeda's end came only more questions about the Helios cluster and the Andromeda galaxy as a whole. I've decided to turn my focus to one of the greatest mysteries of Mass Effect Andromeda.
How do I contact you if things go south?
Why isn't Reyes a squad mate? Okay, that's not what the video is really about. But I will make the argument that Reyes is actually a very compelling NPC, and I'd be really surprised if we didn't see him as a squad mate in future DLC or even future games. I think he definitely should be, but that's a discussion for another time. The real mystery I intend to shed a little light on revolves around the Jardaan. Who are the Jardaan? After spending a lot of time reviewing cutscenes, Codex, and other little hints spread throughout the game, the answer started to become a little more clear. Based on the fact that Jardaan have fled after a horrific event that spawned the Scourge in the first place, and this conversation with Sam.
Hello, Ryder. Through Meridian, I gained insight into the Jardaan, creators of the Remnant and the Angara. Meridian's code accounts for incredible potential and infinite diversity. They weren't achieved. No creator would be content.
You think the Jardaan might come back?
Unknown. They abandoned a great work, which you have reinterpreted.
There's a very good chance that we'll be learning a lot more about them and possibly even encountering them in future games. That being said, the community is concerned with what that will mean for the Initiative and the rest of the inhabitants of the Helios cluster. Were the Jardaan peaceful in nature, or was there a more malevolent side of them that we haven't quite discovered yet? Also, upon returning, will they be happy to see that their work, although somewhat different than they had originally intended, has been completed, or will they see it as a disgrace to everything they worked hard for and retaliate in turn? Given all that we know, I'd say that the Jardaan, or at least the ones that used to reside within the cluster, were scientists and explorers first and foremost, with little to no military to speak of. Don't believe me? Let's take a look at the facts. Just about everything they've created, that we have seen, puts heavy emphasis on creation, not destruction. For instance, the Remnant's primary directives are production, repair, and maintenance to ensure that the tech the Jardaan have created can be used when needed. Notice that during several encounters with the Remnant, when you haven't already interfaced with nearby consoles or are trespassing within their structures, they're passive in nature, and will only attack if they feel that you are obstructing their progress or are a threat. The observers, for instance, can be seen scanning or conducting maintenance, and have even been used by the player to activate unreachable consoles and repair broken tech. The primary use of their lasers is to facilitate this purpose, but can be used with some efficiency in combat if the laser is continuous on its chosen target. But again, they only do so out of defense and are using a tool as a weapon. Assemblers, as their name implies, are used to generate units on the fly to assist in their efforts. Unfortunately, they seem to print a bastardized and imperfect version of what originally was intended to be worker bots. Their Codex even explains that they try to stay away from the heat of the battle as well as they can, again because that's not what they are really programmed to do. Which brings us back to those imperfect creations I mentioned before, known as the Breachers. Just by looking at their design, you can tell that there were basic worker bots that were meant to be mass-produced and to do much of the grunt work. Their current iteration, however, serves as a crude means of engaging hostiles. Their build is unstable, their core isn't improperly shielded, the critical points are left wide open for exploitation. If this unit was truly meant for combat, it would have been crafted much more efficiently, with nowhere near as many weaknesses, and would have expanded combat capabilities. Then we have the Nullifiers, which were designed for excavation, as the Codex also states. Their self-repair cycles and shielding are meant to protect them from debris and harm as they work, with the Initiative even taking note that they would be quite useful for mining operations. Even the daunting Architect serves a much greater purpose than being a metallic thresher maw. PB speculates that they are designed for much larger and more tasking excavation efforts, such as what might be needed to create space for the vaults and other larger subterranean locations. This is supported by their nearly indestructible design, their drill-shaped head when closed, and the rocket thrusters that are used to help propel them as they burrow through the ground. Although there's no denying the destroyers were built for combat, their bulky frame and weapons array are there to serve as heavy defenders, repelling intruders, rather than acting as frontline combat units. The fact that the player never sees destroyers out in the wild, and only within the vaults and other secured locations, further proves that point. Hey, remember that Remnant fleet you summoned for the assault on Meridian? Well, you'll notice that the smallest ships never fire a shot, but ram into the Kett ships instead. These are likely meant for exploration, just like the Tempest, so such a strategy is the only means for putting on an offensive. The larger ships are notated within the Codex as large storage freighters, but seem to work as blast sponges, and assisting with pulling the Scourge toward the Kett Armada. Definitely not made for battle. Now I know what some of you are thinking. Okay, say you're right about everything you said so far, then explain why there are Remnant weapons that you can research and develop if the Jardaan were so peaceful. The answer to that is simple. The description of the weapons and armor state that they were designed and created by the Initiative reverse engineering or were based off of the Remnant tech that were retrofitted to function as instruments of war. And even if you don't take the Remnant into account, the Jardaan created a vast network of vaults, monoliths, and other structures that terraform otherwise uninhabitable planets and made them viable for sentient life. And they weren't content there. They also created an entire alien species genetically constructed to best survive the environments of the planets that were being terraformed for them to inherit. That's right, I'm talking about the Angara. And there are no signs or evidence that the Angara were created for the purpose of combat or servitude. With that being said, the Jardaan have proved that they are profoundly advanced and beyond the comprehension of all that have come across what they left behind so far. I'd even say that they overshadow even the Protheans and the Leviathans in terms of technological advancement. A popular concept in sci-fi is that once a being advances to a certain point, they become almost godlike and the need for violence is almost deemed unnecessary. And I think it's safe to say the Jardaan have pretty much reached this point, which is why, if or when they return, I don't think they would be prone to violence against the advanced life forms that currently inhabit the Helios cluster, especially their own creations. At worst, there would probably be an uneasy tension at first, as neither side is sure of whether either is truly friend or foe. They are not, however, arrogant enough as to where they didn't at least have some form of protection, just in case, as other beings may aim to steal or destroy what they've created. There is, after all, enough tech in place to ensure their survival, or so they thought. What caused the Jardaan to leave? We know the weapon was unleashed several hundred years ago at Kai Tessira, resulting in the Scourge, which just so happens to be drawn to all Remnant tech. This kind of leaves us with two different scenarios. Either one, some of the Jardaan were not pleased with the others playing God and creating the Angara, resulting in civil war, which I hope is not the case because the Civil War storyline with advanced races kind of been done to death. Or two, another faction or species arrived that matched or even surpasses the level of technology that the Jardaan possesses, which is frightening even just to think about. Regardless of which scenario is true, the conflict resulted in the Jardaan separating Meridian and sending it on its merry way, while they escape with their lives either back to their homeworld or off to another destination. The battle must have been relatively short and decisive, as there doesn't seem to be any wreckage or ruins to serve as a reminder of what happened, save for the Scourge itself. Going back to several different movies, shows, and other forms of sci-fi, specifically Star Wars for this example, we see signs of war throughout the galaxy, such as the broken down Star Destroyers and assorted Rebel Imperial ships in graveyards of sorts. We don't have that in Mass Effect Andromeda. Even the derelict Remnant ship on Eladin shows no damage to its exterior, and all the damage within seems to be the result of the ship crashing into the planet. What are the Jardaan, and what do they look like? This part is probably the only one that will remain a mystery, at least until their big reveal, but that isn't going to stop the internet or me from speculating. First we gotta figure out if the Jardaan are a faction or a species of alien in itself. I'm going to lean more towards an alien species until it's been proven otherwise. Since religion has been brought up in the game, along with the concept of creating life and playing God, it got me thinking. Now I haven't really read the Bible, nor am I all that religious, but I believe it is said that humans were made in God's image. If the Jardaan had a similar notion, it could be possible that they don't look much different than the Angarans themselves. We already know that they've used their own DNA to help create the Angarans, so it's not too much of a stretch. Some believe the Jardaan are AI, which is a possibility, but an alien species that fused with AI seems more plausible. The argument made in favor of the Jardaan being AI involves the Remnant consoles themselves, which only seem to be accessed by Sam throughout the game. Problem with that theory is that the Codex about interfacing mentions that there are no signs that an AI is required, and we even have a scene where Ryder, without the use of Sam, is able to summon a Remnant fleet from sheer force of will, at a cost of course. There was also the time an Angaran named Tavos was able to interface with Remnant tech with only the use of a Remnant tech gauntlet, and nothing more. The only known requirement is a neural connection, which can be done with tech and without the use of an AI. Another theory is that many of the Jardaan were exalted by the Kett, and are actually the Primus and other similar-looking Kett, and that their original form isn't too far off. This proved interesting as theory with this scene.
Arrogant simpletons. This is a gift. Who are you to deny it?
You turned them into monsters that fight their own people.
These chosen join with us to become great beyond your ability to understand. Like them, I was once wretched, and the exalted DNA of our great Archon entwines with mine. I stand on the shoulders of his greatness, as they do, as one day, you will.
Except for one glaring issue. The Kett only arrived within the Helios cluster 80 years before the current date of the game, as mentioned by Jal. That, and if this were true, then these Jardaan Kett would have no issues with working with their own technology and opening the vaults for the Archon. And that will just about wrap up this video. If there's anything that you feel I may have missed, counterpoints you'd like to present, or even found this video informative, please be sure to leave a comment down below, like the video, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, share it with your friends, build a statue of my armor, and all that other good stuff. Thanks always for watching, and until next time.